What's up, guys? Thanks so much for coming back to my channel. My name is Justin Klumbala, and I'm really excited about today's subject. We're actually going to be talking about the backswing, and I'm really going to be going into quite a bit of detail on what you should be doing in the backswing. So I'm really excited about what we're going to be talking about today. So if you haven't already, just a quick reminder, if you want to get notifications for future videos that I'm going to be doing, there's a subscribe button down here just below this video. So click on that subscribe button, and then right next to it is there a little bell notification. You can click on that, and that'll give you notifications for future videos that I do. And so here we go. Let's get into the backswing video, okay? So generally speaking, in my philosophy of teaching golf, I actually don't talk a lot about backswing. And the real reason why is because the backswing really doesn't hit the golf ball. There's actually quite a few examples on the PGA Tour that actually have horrible backswings, but hit the ball very, very well because their downswings are actually much better. So such examples would be kind of Jim Furyk, kind of a wild backswing. Miller Barber, another kind of wild backswing. Lee Trevino used to take the club way to the outside in the backswing. Matt Kuchar, really, really flat in the backswing. So there's a lot of kind of differences in backswings on the PGA Tour that are very, very different, however, are very successful, where the downswings tend to get a little bit more similar when it comes to tour players. So typically, I don't teach a ton about the backswing in a typical private lesson. However, there are some good techniques and good mechanics to think about that can actually help your game quite a bit. So I'm going to be kind of going through piece by piece a little bit and what we should talk about in the backswing. But first off, before we get into the backswing, I want to talk a little bit about just a pre-swing ritual. One of my mentors was Jim McLean, and he used to talk about good player mannerisms. What do good players tend to do that poor players tend to not do so much? So we're going to talk first off on just good player mannerisms right up to the point that you're about to make the swing. And let's talk about that right now. So one thing that we do when we get into a golf ball is that a great player will tend to aim the club face first and then set their body. And a cool idea from Ken Venturi is to get into the golf ball in 3 moves. Ken Venturi was the winner of the 1964 U.S. Open and was a CBS analyst that analyzed the PGA Tour tournaments for a long time, but a phenomenal player, and he was also a prodigy of Ben Hogan and Byron Nelson. So a great wealth of information from him, and this was actually his idea of getting into the golf ball in 3 moves, and these are the 3 moves. So a good player will tend to get their grip on, and then they will step in with their right foot first and aim the club face first. So that's the first move into getting into a golf ball like a good player would. So stepping in with their right foot first and aiming the face. The second move is to set their left foot, and the third move is to set their right foot. And that's the 3 moves to get into the golf ball well. What a poorer player tends to do is they tend to aim their body first. So they tend to kind of put a club on their hips or their shoulders to see where they're lined up there, and then they'll kind of put their club down. Definitely a poorer player move, and definitely something that I would suggest getting away from if this is something that you currently do. So we want to aim that club face first. So doing the Ken Venturi 3 moves, stepping in with the right foot, aiming the face. The reason why we step in with the right foot is that it gets us a little bit more open to our target to allow ourselves to aim the face where we want that to go. And then we set our body and our feet to where our face is pointed. So getting that face where it needs to be pointed first is priority number 1. Now, once you get into the golf ball, this is kind of right out of my mentor's book, Jim McLean. He wrote it in the 8-Step Swing book. He had the 21 death moves, chapter 3. And the first death move was freezing over the golf ball. So what poorer players tend to do is once they get into the golf ball, they will tend to freeze over the ball, and they'll tend to stare at the golf ball more than they stare at the target. So they might stare at the ball. As you can see, I have no movement over the golf ball right now. I'll maybe do a quick look at the target, but then right back at the golf ball. maybe a little bit of an adjustment, but then right back to freezing and then moving away. So the problem with this is that it tends to build tension, and tension kills the golf swing. Definitely a staple quote that you would hear in a lot of Jim McLean golf schools is that tension kills the golf swing. And freezing over the ball and allowing yourself to try to think about all the mechanics that you're trying to achieve in this shot is going to create more tension in your hands and arms and in your body. So getting into that freezing position here can tend to create a lot of tension. So to avoid that, we want to have some movement over the ball. So what you'll see here is that one thing I'll tend to do is I'll tend to jostle my feet. So if you're looking at my feet here, you'll see that my toes are being picked up here. That's a great way to jostle your feet. Good players will tend to never jostle their feet by picking up their heels. So you'll never see somebody doing one of these where they pick up their heels, at least good players. You'll always see good players tending to pick up their toes a little bit as they're getting into the golf ball. Another thing that they'll tend to do, a good player mannerism, is going to have a little bit of a waggle with their hands. But if you notice, I only waggle backwards. I don't waggle forwards. So I'm not waggling back and forth. I'm only waggling backwards to try to do a little pre-move of what my club is going to do. So I kind of pick up the club above the ball. I waggle it back to the inside of my target line here, which is on the white line. So I waggle it back to the inside, back to the ball, waggle it inside, back to the ball, waggle it back inside, back to the ball. Maybe 3 to 4 waggles is a good thing to do. And then while doing all of this, jostling the feet, waggling the club, I'm also going to be staring more at my target. So you can see my face is pointing at more at my target. Maybe I'll glance at the golf ball, but then I'll stare back at my target, glance at the golf ball, and then go. Okay? Usually 2 looks at the target is best. 1 look at the target, back to the ball. 2nd look at the target, back at the ball, and then go. And those are kind of the pre-swing rituals, good player rituals that would be good for your game. Now, I know I went over a lot of information there, and I think some of you might be saying, well, whoa, Justin, we haven't even started swinging the golf club, and I'm already kind of confused. There's a lot of things for me to remember there. And my goal for you, if you're just watching this video for the first time, is not to try to get you to remember everything I just said right there, or even everything that I'm about to say in this video. If you can take away 1 or 2 things away from this video and just give it a try and work on it, I think it's going to really help your game. And then maybe coming back to this video and maybe adding another couple things from this video to your game. But trying to take 1 or 2 good ideas away from this video would be a great thing for you to do. So now that we've covered the pre-swing rituals and what we want to do with our hands and arms and how to line up to the ball, and we've looked at the target twice, now we're about to swing. So let's talk about the first move away from the golf ball. So now I'm set up into the golf ball here, and what we want to make sure that we do is that we get that club starting to go a little bit more to the inside of the target line. As you can see here, I've kind of have a little circle down on the ground here, and what this represents is the kind of the swing plane, that the club works to the inside of the golf ball, strikes the golf ball, and then goes back to the inside. Golf is not played on a straight line back and through. That's where we want the ball to go. The ball's going to go straight, but we want our swing to go inside, strike the ball, and then go back to the inside. So the first thing that we want to kind of see is that club starts to work inside. And you'll see here that I have a little shaft on the ground here. And what this is the swing plane. As you can see here, if I put the club down right next to this little stick here, you can see when it's just resting in the address position that the shaft is right on that same little white stick there. So my first move in the backswing is to try to kind of trace that line back up into this first move. And what I prefer to see is a little bit more of a hand action as we start this backswing here. If you've seen some of my previous videos, I'm a big fan of kind of a hands and arms dominant swing. So if you can use more of the hands to get yourself to start that backswing, it puts the hands more in control, which means that you're putting the part of your body that has the most coordination, which is your hands and arms, in control right away. So as you can see, when I start this backswing here, I'm kind of hinging right away, and the club's coming up, and we're getting that club shaft that club to kind of match the top of my little swing plane shaft here. So I'm hinging right away, getting that club to go first, but quickly afterwards, my body starts to follow. So it's not just hands, if you can see here. I'm not just picking up the hands. The hands start, probably go back about a foot here, and then my shoulders start to follow as I'm starting to create the first hinge in my backswing here, which is between my left arm and the club. And if you can't see that from this angle, I'll come a little closer here. So this first move, I'm trying to get that club to hinge right away, get into this position here where we're getting this angle between my left arm and the club, okay? So I get set up to the ball, one of my pre-ritual moves, and I'm hinging right away. And also too, if you notice here, this is going to be super important because one of the most important things in the golf swing is having a square club face. And if you're opening the face or really shutting the face as the first move in your backswing, that's going to be a big no-no. So a good rule of thumb is to try to feel like the club face is pointing at the ball as you go back. So as I set up to the ball here, I'm trying to get the club to stay pointing at the golf ball. So if I kind of stopped right in this position here, this club face would still be pointing where the golf ball is. If I'm rolling this face open and the face is starting to point towards the sky, that's a big, big no-no because that means we're getting that face open and that's going to cause more slices and sometimes some pulls. The other big no-no is to get to overdo getting that face to point down. And as you can see now, my face is pointing down to the ground, and that's no good either. There's an exception to this, though, when it comes to your club face, that sometimes practicing with extremes can help you. So let's just say, for example, in your backswing, you're one that tends to really open the face quite a bit. And you kind of start this backswing, getting that club face to really point towards the sky. Practicing the opposite extreme can help you get into the correct position. So the opposite extreme would be feeling like the club face is more pointing down to the ground. You'll also see here with my knuckles, my left hand knuckles here, they're also kind of pointing down to the ground as well. It's almost like I'm kind of reverse scraping my hands or reverse scraping my knuckles along the ground in my backswing, which gets my hand in kind of like a bowed position right away. So I'm kind of getting that club face to point down. That would be the extreme if you're one that tends to open the face too much. Now, if you're one that takes the club face too much back, kind of feeling the club face down too much, and you tend to hit the hooks and pushes quite a bit, you would want to work on trying to get that club to feel like it's almost kind of fanning open a little bit more. Once again, we don't want to get to the extreme, but sometimes feeling that extreme will get you to where we want you to be, which is once again getting that club face to point at the ball as you start to the backswing. Now, also too, if I kind of stop here just for a quick second, you can see that my leading edge, just the edge of my club here, is on a similar angle that my spine angle is on. Okay, and that's another way to kind of tell that you have a square club face is that at the halfway point here, that leading edge is just matching my spine angle here as I start the backswing here. I don't want it to be perfectly toe up or even pointing to the right, and I obviously don't want the leading edge to be parallel to the ground either. So that's another way to kind of check that backswing. So just once again, just to review, I'm trying to get that feeling of the hands kind of hinging the club right away, getting myself to start forming this L that I'm going to want here at the 3/4 position in the backswing. And then as I'm creating that, I'm trying to monitor the club face to make sure that face is kind of continuing to point at the ball. And then eventually, once I pass this position here, it's going to start pointing at the camera out behind you there. We don't want it kind of pointing at my head. That would be a big no-no there as well. So I'm trying to get that club to point at the ball in the backswing, then point kind of a little bit behind me towards the camera. And then as you can see here, as I get to the top of the swing here, my left wrist is going to be nice and flat. Okay, so that is part one of a 2-part video that I'm going to be doing here for you for the backswing. I know I've really just talked about kind of getting into the ball, the good player mannerisms, and then that first move away from the ball, and really talking about the squareness of that club face. And that's going to be part one. Stay tuned. I'm going to be coming out with part two a little later this week, and I really hope this kind of detailed video will help you with getting into the ball better, having those better player mannerisms, and then getting your swing off to the right start with a square club face, and then also using more of those hands and having the hands dictate that backswing as opposed to you trying to feel like you're turning your body into that backswing. Okay, so thanks so much for watching this video. Once again, I really hope this helps your game. And then also, if you haven't already, click on that subscribe button down below and the bell button right next to it. And then if you really like this video, please click the like button down below. And I look forward to seeing you at my next video. Thanks so much for watching.